friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Olivia, and if you've never seen my face before, you can consider me your fragrance fairy godmother. So today's video is a much requested video that I have been asked about time and time and time again, and that is my favorite patchouli fragrances. Now I have to be honest with you, in the beginning of my fragrance journey, patchouli was a note that I struggled with. But as I've gone throughout this journey, I've tried a lot of different fragrances, and I find myself fancying the note of patchouli. Patchouli is actually within the mint family and can take on many different smells when in fragrances. It can smell earthy, a little bit like damp soil. It can have a musky characteristic. It can be slightly sweet and herbaceous, or it can offer a little bit of spiciness. So the girl has range, and it's held a very high place in history, once used as a signifier of wealth, as King Tut was buried with 10 gallons in his tomb. It's also been used historically in medicines for its anti-inflammatory and antibacterial properties, and it's also considered an aphrodisiac. So although it was a bit of a foreign scent to my nose in the beginning, I now understand the power that it holds, and I think I have picked out some fragrances that really honor the legacy of patchouli. So if you love the scent of patchouli, you are in the right place, but even if you don't care for the scent of patchouli, you might find something in this list that catches your fancy. So grab yourself a little drink, a little snack, have a seat, and let's get rolling. First up on the list that I have been loving on lately is a brand new fragrance from the house of Micallef, which we all should be no stranger to this house by now because I have been raving about this brand since the very early days of my YouTube. And I should have known if they were going to do a patchouli fragrance, they were going to do something special. So this is called Ma Nature, and this was created with anti-conformity in mind. Instead of using patchouli as a grounding bass note, it plays as the star player in the top and mid notes. So when it opens up, it really catches you with a natural smelling, fresh green and spicy patchouli that gives this bright herbal freshness. But in combination with the cashmere wood and the sandalwood, this quickly starts to develop into something a little bit more brooding. It's earthy and dark and almost has a charred grittiness to it. But they've balanced that raw, earthy, gritty, herbaceous quality with some sweeter notes such as honey and vanilla that just help to soften the edges ever slightly while still having patchouli as the star player. So it starts off as something really bold and attention-grabbing, and then it warms up onto the skin and becomes warm and musky and very sensual. And I love that they took a note that is commonly used as a facet, a background player, and they put it as the leading character. They gave patchouli the spotlight in such a unique way, and this is going to be heavy in my rotation for fall and winter. And next up is Patchouli Paris by Guerlain. Now sometimes patchouli can almost have a little bit of a chocolatey feel to it. So this one is going to be a little less earthy than the first one and lean a little bit more in the chocolate direction. This also has iris and aldehydes, giving it a bit of a powdery touch. So there's a fella that I follow on Instagram called Teddy Hogan, and he's a perfumer, and he described this as smelling like powdered chocolate that's slightly salted, and I would have to agree with him. The saltiness coming from an ambergris that gives this an incredibly long-lasting feel to it. It has a little bit of spiciness, but it's softened with that iris note, giving it a fluffy touch. And I think that this would be good for those of you who are a little bit hesitant at the note of patchouli and you want something that is going to meld well with your skin. This one is a very easy wear and a beautiful scent. Now, if you're looking for a patchouli that has a brightness, that has almost a misty, balmy quality, almost like the smell of fresh, dewy leaves after rainfall, let me introduce you to Persephone's patchouli. Now, I only have this little decant, and when I tell you I wear this one spray at a time, I am milking this bad boy for all it's worth. Because I want you to imagine this with me really quick. You are a fisherman, and you are set sailing on the ocean, and for miles and miles on end, you can only see clouds and water. And far off in the distance, you see the most beautiful mermaid, and she's calling you into the darkness. It starts off misty and fresh and bright, like the singing of a siren, but then it starts to go a little bit woody, a little bit dark and rich. I don't know how to explain it other than it smells like a thunderstorm over the ocean. There is something distinctly more salty about this, but this has the slightest bit of sweetness coming from honey, but not a lot. This one is mystical, it's magical, and it is bizarre, but I really enjoy it. Another interesting one that I just recently added to my collection is Aristo Chypre by Coty. And I actually got to go to Paris recently with Coty to celebrate their 120-year anniversary. And this new line that they came out with has very simple and straightforward formulations, but they've been working on a new technology with this new line called molecular aura, which is supposed to help these fragrances, although they have very simple scent profiles, to last up to 30 hours. Now, when it comes to patchouli fragrances, they don't often need help lasting very long because it's a very fixative note. So I will be trying out the entirety of the collection coming soon, and I'll let you know if they do in fact boast a really long wearing power. But this is quite simply a rose and patchouli fragrance, but this feels very posh. There is something very sophisticated and elegant and very distinct about this without smelling too vintage. The rose gives both a velvety, powdery touch, also a slight licorice sweetness. And the patchouli in this feels very clean and uplifting. It's not balmy and dark and dense, but rather more sheer, but still very long lasting. Sometimes rose and patchouli, if we're being honest, can have a little bit of a potpourri type smell. I'm happy to report that this does not whatsoever. It smells like a classic scent profile made modern. And I like that this pays homage and tips its hat to the origins of the brand. Given that their fragrance, Chypre, really defined the genre of Chypre fragrances that we know today. Next up is a fragrance that is coming just in time for spooky season because this has Halloween gothic vibes written all over it, and that is Craft by Andrea Maack. Similar to Persephone's Patchouli, this has a cold, misty morning, cold air sort of feel about it. But instead of being ocean mist, this has that cold metallic scent that you get on a winter's morning. And there's also an incense in this, and in combination it comes off very clean, but I've described this in the past as smelling like a cold morning outside a Roman cathedral. So it starts off as a cold and metallic incense scent, and then when it dries down, that's when you start to get that patchouli. It's got a witchy vibe to it. It's very mysterious. It is a little bit bizarre, and it's not going to be for everyone, but there's an intrigue to this fragrance that just makes me want to smell it more and more and more, and I just got a second bottle of it, so I will be wearing this for Halloween. Now, this might be going into the Wayback Machine, but I want you guys to roll with me here. Flowerbomb. Now, Flowerbomb is a fragrance that I wore for years, just as many women my age did. This was kind of a coming-of-age fragrance. Now, this is quite different from the last fragrances we talked about because this is going to be floral, yes, but very, very sweet. And I can remember this fragrance being super long lasting, but this is before I was really familiar with super duper high quality fragrances, so I wasn't sure how it was going to hold up after I've tried a bunch of different fragrances, and this is still beast mode. And this was such an interesting era of fragrances to me because now we think of feminine as overly edible, vanilla, smell like a cupcake. Well, this has the sweetness, but it has some command because of that patchouli. When they say that patchouli is an aphrodisiac, I really, really see it here in this fragrance. Because even after all these years, if I wear this on date night, I feel sexy. So perhaps it's a little passé for some people, but for me, it is not. I still really enjoy this fragrance, and I love that it's a sweet take on a patchouli floral scent. Another fragrance in my collection that will fall under that sweeter category of patchouli fragrances is Vanilla Royale Sugared Patchouli from Kayali. Now, instead of being floral like Flowerbomb, this one is going to take it in the more vanillic direction. Think brown sugar, creme brulee, but then with a rich, dark, brooding earthiness. This has a very regal scent to it. But when this first came out, I think the word patchouli being in the name scared so many people that they didn't even bother to try it. And I have to be honest with you, I was one of those people because I was still in fear at the time. But once I opened my mind, this fragrance layers so well underneath fragrances and just gives it this boost, this confidence boost. There's something about this that is sweet and rich and magnetic and royal, truly royal. There's this intoxicating feel that you want to just go back and smell it again and smell it again. This is one of those fragrances that I tell people smells like you have money. Now, if I am looking to reach for a patchouli that is straightforward, that I can layer under fragrances to give them a little bit of oomph, but there's not a lot of notes surrounding it, I'm reaching for this little cutie right here called Pat Von Chouli by DS&Durga. This was actually in a murder mystery layering set that they launched earlier in the month. It was adorable. You're meant to layer the potions together to create your own answer to this mystery game. It's amazing. And this one is raw and earthy and gritty, but has a transparency to it. It's unmuddled, it's uncomplicated, and I find myself reaching for this when I want to amp up a fragrance and give it a little bit more of an oomph, a little bit of a base to it. This layers really well with vanilla fragrances, woody fragrances, aquatic fragrances, floral fragrances, really anything. Now, I don't think that you can purchase this scent just on its own. It came in that set, but if you like kitschy little murder mystery spooky things, I would say check it out. It was very fun. Another in my collection that is going to have that sort of regal feel to it, but lean a little bit more on the unisex masculine side, is Smell Like a King by Experimental Perfume Club. And this scent right here is a very indulgent scent because it kind of paints this picture of being in a jazz lounge where you have a lot of wooden paneling, you have leather seats, you have whiskey, there's this dark earthiness, almost like it rained outside, and you're getting the chill air kind of rolling through the place along with cigar smoke. Now, there's nothing in the notes that would denote something a little bit sweet, but this almost gives a creamy, sweet warmth on my skin along with those notes. I don't know if it's just how it's reacting with me, because out of the bottle, it doesn't really smell like that. It's dark, it's rich, it's sexy, and it's very opulent. Another fragrance that if you were to wear this, people would think that you got money. And we're gonna close it off with another fragrance that I got a couple of weeks ago when I was in Dallas, and this is by the brand Agatho, and it's called Giardinodiercole. That translates to Garden of Hercules. And Hercules is a great comparison because this is a powerhouse of a fragrance. Ooh, I felt like Jeremy just then. Nope. So this is also a spicy, incense, woody patchouli scent that comes off a little bit masculine, but when I wore this, every gal was like, I want my husband to smell like that. Forget the husband. I want to smell like this because this holds like this animalistic power behind it. It's got black pepper, it's got a little bit of an herbal touch coming from some lavender. The patchouli is there and very dominant and unabashed. And you also have this dark sensuality coming from an oud that does not go funky. It does not go funky. And the incense is super prominent, super duper church-like in a cool gothic way. Man, this fragrance turns heads and snaps necks, we'll just say that. I imagined the most powerful, distinguished gentleman wearing this fragrance, and that's what I want to be, so I'm gonna wear it. So that's all I've got for you today, friends. I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of these patchouli fragrances. I hope that if you are in the place in your journey where patchouli is not really your thing, you might take some of these suggestions and just give them a sniff, have an open mind, because things can change. I was a staunch hater of patchouli fragrances, and now I understand. I understand the magic, but it was an acquired taste, scent, taste. You know what I mean. Some people like one style of fragrance for the entirety of their life. That's just not been my experience. And I think it simply comes with smelling such a vast variety of scents that I really start to open my mind up to different scents and the power that they hold. And knowing that patchouli has had such a prominent place throughout history really gives it an intrigue and made me want to smell it time and time again. If you guys have some favorite patchouli fragrances that you absolutely adore, leave me a little comment down below. I'm always excited to check out new fragrances. And until next Saturday, 10 a.m. PST, you know what to do. Take care of yourselves, my friends.